What's going on, everybody? It is the week before Thanksgiving, and this is our Northern Virginia Market Report. My name is Sean Price. I am with the Price and Price Group here at eXp Realty, and we're going to go over what has happened over the past 7 days in the real estate market. And that way you know exactly what to expect if you're out there looking. First thing I'd like to say is I had a conversation with someone today or this past week, and we were talking about the importance of these weekly emails. You know, how relevant are they? How much valuable information do they give us? And you have to look at things from kind of two different perspectives. And this is the way I look at it, and I found this to be very helpful, so hopefully you will as well. When you're looking at a report, say, that comes out in the news and they say, you know, the market has dropped whatever percentage, or they give you any kind of statistics. Usually those statistics are for sales and closes or settlements that happened at least in the previous month. So let's say that we are looking at a report that we're seeing today, and this is middle of November. So we would be seeing numbers that were reported for October. Well, those October numbers are settlements that occurred in October. Here in Northern Virginia, a typical closing is anywhere from 30 to 45 days. So that means those were properties that went under contract in September. So that information is actually 2 months old. And other parts of the country that, you know, settlements can take up to 60 or 90 days to happen. So, you know, depending on what information you're looking at and what data you're looking at, that information is going to be at least 2 months old. It could be even 3 months old. So if you're using that information to guide your decision processes in the current market today, when you're out there looking at buying or selling a house, a lot of times you're going to be making inaccurate decisions because you're making decisions based on the past. So we use these weekly market reports because what we're doing is we're looking at the previous 7 days worth of activity. We're looking at inventory that's come onto the market in the last 7 days, and we're looking at inventory that has gone off the market. Not inventory that's sold, we're looking at inventory that's gone off the market, so it's in pending or under contract status. So that gives us an idea of what the market is actually doing real time right now, as much as we can. So that way you can make an educated decision and a thought out decision when you go into the market. So for example, let's say that you were looking at, and a lot of sellers have been doing this. Let's say that you were looking, we were in, let's say, August of this year, 2022. And we're considering going onto the market, and we're a seller, and we're looking at the market data that says, hey, the market, you know, is still up 20% or whatever, because they're looking at numbers from June. So you're making a decision based on the market being up. So you're pricing your property based on those strategies, whereas the market is actually down at that point and buyers are scared and they're not buying. So you end up overpricing your property. Same thing from a buyer's perspective, you may take in a bad strategy for making an offer. So it's good to use short-term, what we call leading measures, or at least as close to leading measurements as we can get to, versus using lag measurements to make our real-time decisions. Now, as far as what the future is going to hold, these short-term measures, they don't really tell us too much as far as like what the long-term outlook is, simply because they're short-term blips on the map. So they're helpful for short-term decision making, and that's why we do our monthly market report. Usually about the second week of each month, we go in and we look at the stats from the previous month so we can start getting the big picture. So that's the purpose for the two different market reports. And in fact, if you're receiving this through an email, or if you are seeing this on YouTube or some form like that, I will try to link the October monthly market report with it. Okay, so what's been going on here? Buyer activity and seller activity has slowed. We're right before Thanksgiving, so we kind of expect that to happen. The difference is buyer activity has slowed significantly less than seller activity. So inventory, in other words, has dropped significantly, and buyer activity is still going on. So we've actually moved into a seller's market again. For the last, we were approaching it last week, and this week we are into a seller's market. So overall market activity has come down, but we are in a seller's market right now, which I'll get into in the statistics for you. So buyers, what that means for you is make sure that your agent is doing the research on the property. Make sure your agent's getting in touch with the seller's agent to make sure if they have offers, what those offers look like, what you're battling against, and so on. For the most part, if it's a new property and it's in good condition, it's going to go quickly and it's going to go with, it might have, multiple offers. It's probably not going to go too far above asking, assuming it's priced appropriately, but you're still going to pay close to asking price with an appropriately priced house. Um, if it's a property that's been on the market for a little while, you may have some room for negotiating in some seller concessions, maybe a little bit of a discount on price, maybe even getting the seller to offer you some buy downs, like some interest rate buy downs. So it's a good opportunity right now for buyers. Most buyers are getting inspection contingencies. Most buyers are getting appraisal contingencies. They're getting their finance contingencies. So we're back into that normal protections that you should have when you're buying a house. So it is a good time for you to purchase a home right now. From the seller's perspective, sellers, with inventory being so low right now, and the buyer activity is there. It's a good time to put your property on the market if you need to sell. The buyer activity has dropped a little bit, but not in relationship to the seller activity. So demand is definitely higher than supply right now. But you've got to have your property either correctly priced or it's got to be in good condition. There's still sellers putting their properties on the market that we're seeing that are just pricing them too high, and then they're wondering what's happening when they're not selling. And then they're having to do price reductions, which is giving the impression in the market that the prices are coming down, when in actuality, market values seem to be holding pretty steady. So anyway, just whether you're on the buy side or the sell side, make sure you're working with a realtor that understands what's actually happening in the market and what needs to be done for you to have success in whichever side you're on. It's a volatile market right now. There's a lot of fear out there. The reality doesn't necessarily match the fear, and you have to understand that from both sides so you can make smart decisions. Okay, hope that makes sense. And again, these are just the things that I'm noticing. I love looking at statistics, so it's not really my opinion, it's what the stats are showing. I find it helpful. I hope you are too. All right, so let's dive into the numbers and let's see what we've got going on. Okay, so here we are. We have the buyer activity versus inventory. Orange line is buyer activity, and again, it's down 12% this past 7 days, and inventory is down 24%. So more significant drop in inventory than buyer activity. Get myself a little pen here. So that creates a gap. So this is our inventory line, and this is our buyer activity line. So we have this gap here, and with buyer activity being higher than inventory, that means that demand is higher than supply. So you can see the general activity of the market itself as we've gone into the fall months has been on a declining pattern, and that's probably because of the fall months and the increased interest rates. So that's a dual factor on that. It's not a steep decline, it's just a slow, gradual decline. We did see that, we've seen that decline before. You can see it here. So it's not abnormal, it's just what is. So if we go over here to buyer's market versus seller's market, you can see the last 7 days we increased up to where we were right at neutral, and are the previous 7 days, and then this past 7 days we've moved up into the seller's market. Now, does that mean that we're going to be starting to shoot up into a seller's market over the next several weeks? That's really hard to tell, because in reality, with inventory dropping as much as it has, there's not going to be anything for buyers to buy. So I expect next week that, especially with the holidays coming, that buyer activity will continue in a downward trend. So assuming inventory, depending on what inventory does, will depend on where this motion goes. But I do expect buyer activity to actually decrease next week. And I expect inventory to decrease next week because it's Thanksgiving week. So it'll be interesting to see. I am going to do my best to get a market report shot next week. We do have family in town, so we may not be able to, between trying to serve clients and be with our families. So hopefully I'll get you a market report next week, but if I don't, I will certainly be back the week after Thanksgiving and show you what's happened during the holidays. If you have any questions, if you're on the buying side and you're trying to figure out if it's a good time to buy or sell, let's have a one-on-one conversation. Let's look at what your goals are and what your strategies are, and see what we can do to actually make your payments affordable. There's a lot of options out there right now that buyers do have. From the sales side, if you're considering selling, let's have that same conversation, but let's look at what your strategies are, and is it a good time for you to sell right now? What's the condition of the house? How's your location? Does it fit what buyers are looking for right now? We're going to have a very, very real conversation whether you're buyer or seller, and tell you what we believe to be the truth based on the numbers that we're seeing. Okay, hope this makes sense. Again, any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we will see you on next week's video. If I don't talk to you or hear from any of you, have a happy Thanksgiving.